So, friends, Python programming, which is the most happening programming language in the industry. There are many other programming languages which are also popularizing, but from the AI implementation perspective, Python programming is the go-to tool. Okay, go-to programming language. Uh, Now it has basically become the favorite because of its features, the advantages that Python programming gives you. So if I have to talk about the Python programming language, we'll start with the history. Generally, everybody starts with the history. It's not that important. Python programming language was originally developed in 1990s. I think 1992, if I'm not mistaken, was released, the first official release. And it has got the name because of a circus program. The developer was Guido van Rossum. He is the creator, Guido van Rossum, assuming the spelling is correct. And he was fond of a Python programming language, circus program, which was very popularly telecasted in BBC those days, 1990s. So he wanted his programming language also to become so popular, and hence he named the software as Python. Monty Python's Flying Circus. Okay, that was the circus name, Monty Python Flying Circus. So from this, circus, Rossum got influenced. Okay, so that is the history. It has nothing to do with the snake. Now coming to the features, these are important. Now, what do you want in programming language? See, any programming language, right? Yeah, I'm using a word called language. So generally, when we talk about any language, okay, any language, whatever the language it is, it's basically used to communicate between two entities. Language is used as a communication tool between two entities, and here I'm talking about human to human communication, and these are basically the languages that we know. English is the business language, right? English. Why English? Why not any other language? Why not Chinese? Why not Mandarin? Why not any of the local languages? My mother tongue is Telugu. So in India itself, we have so many different variations of languages. Why not any other language? Why only English? This is the first question. What would be your answer, guys, if I have to ask you about this? Why English is preferred as the communication language?
Most of the countries are different people. There's a common language where we can communicate each other.
Not really. French would be most popular. Most widely used language is French, not English. English became a business language. And from there, a lot of people started adopting it.
Maybe easy to understand.
Yes, exactly. It's very, very simple and easy to understand. Right? Everybody can very easily learn English language. If I ask you people to learn Telugu or Mandarin, right, you cannot even imagine, right? It's so difficult, especially Mandarin language, Chinese, Japanese, Arabic. These are more like image, right? Characters that we basically need to understand. So the most important thing in the language is its simplicity. Okay, ease of learning. Simplicity is what we look at. Easy to understand. Now that is one of the features of Python programming language. It's very, in fact, it is based on Python. Python is based on English programming, English-like language only, English only. Okay, so it is English-like language. That's the first thing that we talk about. English-like language. And it is also called as high-level programming language. High-level programming language because Now, what we are doing here is I'm using a specific programming language so that I can, as a human, communicate with a system, right? With a computer, right? Now, obviously, this is a non-living thing, and I need to ensure whatever I speak, system should be able to understand that. Now, I cannot go to a computer level and then communicate with them, right? But traditionally, that is what the programming languages were built for. For example, all the operating systems, they basically are sitting on top of your hardware, right? So the OS basically is a controlling system for the entire hardware that we basically want to use. So that OS programming language is actually developed in such a way that whatever instructions we give, right, it gets communicated to your hardware at hardware level, right, hardware understanding level. Then we have other programming languages, processing languages like Java, for example. Very, very popular, right? Java. These programming languages are not high level. They are actually called as low level abstraction. Because what happens is, whatever the instruction, right, whatever that you want to communicate with your machine, you have to write those instructions in such a way that your system can understand. Okay, so this is called as low level. Whereas Python is called as a high level. That means you speak the language that you understand. Okay. And then what happens in the backend is the Python's kernel, we call it as a kernel, which is nothing but the main engine of programming language, the software, would take your instructions in whatever instructions you speak, right? It's kernel's responsibility to ensure that your machine understands that. You don't have to do it. Okay. So hence it's basically called as high level programming language. Next, one of the most important things for companies is it is free. You don't have to purchase, you don't have to pay for right, using Python programming, getting that software. You don't need to pay. It's completely free. Anyone from anywhere, any corner of the world can get access to Python programming software, put that in their local machines, and then start working on it. Okay. Now, when I say local machines, the point is the individual people, right? We are not using, everybody is not using the same systems. When I say same systems, we are not using same OS level systems, right? Somebody will be using Windows machine, somebody will be using Mac, Apple systems, right? Mac systems. Somebody will be using Linux based operating systems. Servers are all Linux based softwares, I mean, Linux based servers only. So the point is, this software is independent of your operating system. It can work in any machine. So whatever the code that I develop in my machine, I use Windows, right? Can be just taken and can be reused in, let's say, Mac machines or Linux machines. All right. In fact, Android version is also there, but Android, when we talk about Android, it is basically mobile operating system, right? So mobiles are not having the processing capacity. Mobiles don't have the servers, and the computing capacity, the processor capacity, which runs this program. But still, we have basic instructions that can be executed on the mobiles as well. So it is completely independent of the operating system that we are working on. Now, the point is, another point. When we talk about Python, it's a programming language. Basically, it is used for AI, right, development. AI is not restricted to any domain. Okay, we are not confining it to any one specific domain. As I said, I'm working in HR domain, I'm working in sports, I'm working for Telangana transport, road transport. All right. I'm also working with a refinery team, oil and gas refinery team. I have as interactive session with the managers to help them on their projects on the coming Saturday. And Bahrain, I'm traveling so that, right, I can work with the Alba company, which is very popular aluminum based company, right? Aluminum manufacturing. So I'm being there, Bahrain, for 10 days so that, right, I can work with their team to implement AI in their use cases, right? So the example that I'm quoting is because you need to understand that AI is not restricted to one domain. It is not an IT job. Don't look at AI ML as an IT job. Wherever you see data, right? Can you, in fact, I'll ask you, can you tell me any such domain where data is not there? You can just give me some random examples if you can think out of the box. You may say agriculture, but I would say agriculture has a lot of data. Any other domain that you can think of? Not really, right?
No.
Every domain, every industry has data. Wherever you have data, AI ML will be part of it. Ultimately, we are trying to extract information from that data, utilize the data to, right, help the humans working in that domain to become much more smarter, right? So it is domain agnostic. Now, the point is, if so many domains basically want to leverage the idea of AI ML on their data, then Python programming language should also be flexible to help all the domains, right? So that they can use programming language to solve those specific use cases in that respective domains, isn't it? Now, it is OS independent, it is free, so everybody can start using it, isn't it? But the point is, if, let's say, as an example, a domain, maybe aluminum industry I was talking about. So let's assume that manufacturing sector, I'm globalizing it, not specifically talking about aluminum industry, but manufacturing sector. If certain use cases have to be solved using AI ML, then that respective team is kind of using programming language and developing a solution. Okay. Now, similarly, there might be other domains like sports domain, I'm working on projects, HR domain, I'm working on projects, oil and gas. So there are different domains where I'm working on, right? So if there are specific use cases that each of this domain is trying to solve, right? Let's say there were independent teams, and from all these domains, the smart team was able to solve the problem. So they have developed certain solutions, right? Now, let's say after some time, maybe 1 month, 1 year, whatever that is, after some time, if people from the same domain or people from some other domain are trying to resolve similar problem or same problem, in fact, it could be in a different domain or in the same domain, different team, completely different team. So do you expect that that specific team, new team, right, is going to develop everything from scratch? Because people who have developed, let's say my team has developed solutions, okay? Let's say 2024 first quarter, the solutions were developed. Customer is very happy, they are implemented. Okay, now 2025, end of 2025, let's say you people are also trying to solve similar problems or same problem for a different company altogether. All right. So do you think it would be an convenient scenario if you can get access to the programs that I have developed in 2024 first quarter? Or do you feel that no, I don't want Sharat's help, I would be recreating everything from scratch? Which one would be more convenient?
Using the previous one means already existing.
Yes, because time to market would be one of the primary criteria, right? Your customer don't expect you to develop everything from scratch. Customer wants a solution. How you develop that solution is immaterial for him, isn't it? So there's a concept called as reusability. Okay, very, very, very important in the industry, reusability, because this will enable the teams to provide the solutions much quicker, right? As quickly as possible. So Python programming language, because of its free nature, open source, independent of OS nature, and of course, English like language and high level programming language, people, whoever is developing solutions, they are making these solutions publicly made available. Of course, if it is not confined, restricted by the customer, then they are made available to the public. All right. So now this is called as open source nature. So Python programming language is also open source. That means you can also develop solutions. You can also contribute to Python programming. It's not just you take the programming language and work. You also give back. Right? That is called as open source. Okay. So Python is open source, and thanks to this open source nature, you have so much of code available. So many solutions are readily available. And all these programs are stored in a centralized repository, publicly available centralized repository. We call that as PP. Some people call it as P by PI. Some people will call it PP. Right? It depends how you want to pronounce it. This is the centralized location where all the packages or all the softwares that are developed by different people are made available. In fact, I developed a solution along with my another colleague, my student, in fact, and made that available here. So we have to register, and whatever the solution that we are developing, if you want to make that provide or make that accessible to public, then you upload that here, and you can see there are almost 1 billion 1 million users. 979,000 users are there, and these are the number of files that are available. All these are part of these many projects. Each project is like a separate software. Okay, so this is a centralized repository where all the publicly made available softwares on Python are provided. I mean, listed here. It's called as Python Package Index. It's a repository of software for Python programming language, and open source nature, right? So everybody is contributing, and because of this, Python programming language is also becoming more and more robust, publicly available, right? And that's the reason why it is also being adopted more. Okay, we will discuss more about this. How do we access this, right? How do we deal with this packages which are available? I'm searching for one specific package which I was part of development. So this is a complete, this is my name and this is my student. And this is completely an automated implementation for machine learning related stuff. If you want to do the traditional machine learning implementations, then this is the package where you might want to look at. There are many such packages, many such softwares which are made available, but this is one thing which we developed. So this is how it looks like. So you don't need to write everything from scratch. All you need to do is get this software into your machine and start using it. The instructions are also given on how do you use it. Okay. So it does everything for you. Single click and all these visualizations, then this kind of excuse me, machine learning implementations, supervised, unsupervised, right? All these automatically being implemented. You just have to click. So no code platform, you can say. All right. So this is basically how community means people are using Python programming language. Next. when we talk about Python programming language, it has a very, very, very volatile flexibility. Okay. And when I say flexibility, the programming language can be developed. Okay. It is developed and it can be very easily maintained because English like language. Okay. But the other flexibility that it actually brings in is something called as interactive programming. Generally, when we talk about programming language, okay, what happens is, now you guys are not from Python, I mean programming background. Some of you are not from programming background, but generally what happens is we have some code, okay, we write some program using whatever the language, we follow the syntaxes, and then we develop some application. Okay, this is a software application. Okay, code, some code we have developed. Now what happens is, after the development, if this has to be used, we call it as execute. Okay, if this code has to run, then we execute this code. But what if, not syntax wise, but what if logic wise there is some mistake here? Or maybe syntax wise also you might right, overseen certain syntax issues and you have developed the program. What happens is, in the traditional programming languages like Java, once you execute, the code directly does not get executed. What happens is, the code will go into certain stages. The first stage is called as parsing. Parsing is basically nothing but a stage where the program syntaxes are verified, whether you have written the program in using the correct syntaxes or wrong. Something is going wrong there. So parsing will happen and parsing errors might be detected. So if there is an error, then your program will stop here. The execution does not happen. These are stages, okay? So at this initial stage only, the program gets cancelled. So depending on the errors that you are seeing at this level, parsing level, you go back and correct your code. And then again, come to the execution. Then again, it goes to parsing. So it's a cycle, okay? So it comes to the stage again. Now, let's say in this second scenario, the program was correctly written. The code was correctly written. So parsing errors are not there. Okay, so errors rectified. The second stage, right after parsing, we basically come to something called as compiling. Now, there are probably intermediate stages also. I'm not going into the very details of it. Parsing and compiling is what I'm going to talk. I'm not going to talk about optimization here. Okay, so compiling. The second stage is compiling. Excuse me. Now, compiling basically is kind of stage where the program needs to get executed. And for that, the code that you have written using a certain programming language, instructions is written by you, right? Using that English kind of instructions, needs to be converted. Here, it needs to be converted into machine understanding language. Machine understanding language. This is called as compiling. So you compile the program so that the code gets converted into machine understandable language. And here, while the code is getting converted, the software would also try to evaluate the logic of that program. So you may get compilation errors here. We call it as compilation errors. We may get, okay, generally at compile level only majority of the errors were detected. So compilation errors will happen. So what happens again? You go back. You go back, correct your logic. You again come back. Third stage, right? So this way you repeat the process. Okay. Now what happens is it takes a lot of effort from the developer to ensure that these errors are not there at the initial stage itself. But whatever it is, humans are humans, so a lot of mistakes will creep in. All right. So this is how your traditional programming languages are executed. These are called as compilation based, compiler based programming languages. Compiler based programming languages. Now, Python is not this. Python has this interactive programming capacity thanks to its interpreter programming language capacity. Interpreter programming. What does this interpreter programming languages do is, when you're writing as a developer, when you want to write an application, okay, this is, let's say, the code frame, okay, the file. So here you write first line. Excuse me. You write a first line of the code. And what you do is you execute it at this stage itself. One line, one instruction. You execute it. You don't need to build the entire logic. One line at a time. This is called as interactive. Now, what happens is, as a developer, you know that this line has successfully executed. So you will know what needs to be executed or what needs to be written as part of the next line. You get the result also here, right? When you're executing, you get the result also for that particular line. So based on the result, you would be able to dynamically change the logic here. While you're developing, you will be able to change the entire logic that you are trying to achieve. Right? So this is basically the advantage of Python programming language. We call it as interactive programming capacity that is achieved because it is a interpreter language. Interpreter based programming language. Interpreter language, which brings you interactive programming, and thanks to this, it is also called as dynamic programming. At the execution level, you will be able to make the dynamic changes, right? Because of its interactive nature. Okay. So now you may say that, do we have to always work like this only? Should I have to run the code only line by line? If that is the case, what if I developed an application which needs to be executed as part of a different big application? I have some application, I want to embed some part of the code in it, or maybe for an end user, the application needs to be executed at one go, so that it gives you the complete solution. In such case, what we do, right? So Python programming language is interactive programming capacity, but it also has scripting programming capacity as well. When I say scripting, it is this behavior, compiler based programming language type of behavior, where you write the entire logic and execute it once. So while you're developing, you use the interactive programming, but when you're executing it after development, when you want to execute it, it can be executed as a single script. So it's also called scripting programming capacity as well. It can also be used as a scripting program. Okay, some of the important features I'm talking about. All right, now one of the important feature that we will utilize is called as functional oriented programming. And object oriented program. Okay, so what is this functional oriented and what is object oriented? Have you heard about OOPS programming? OOPS. OOPS is nothing but this object oriented, and all your traditional programming languages are OOPS based. So as I was explaining this logic, right? As I was explaining this logic, which you're seeing on the screen, This compiler-based programming language, which is executed as a single script, right? A traditional programming language is typically object-oriented. Okay, whereas interpreter-based programming language will give you an advantage of writing the program in a functional-oriented style. Now, you need to understand the difference between object and function. In programming language, right, in programming language world, what does an object mean and what does a function mean? If you can understand this difference, then the oriented programming, right, it's basically focus will be on object in object oriented, focus will be on function in function oriented, right? So oriented, right? So that is, we are inclining towards that. So what is the difference between object and function, or what is the definition of object and function? Anyone want to basically talk about that?
Yeah, Sharad. Object means it's a group of functionalities mapped to an object, like a group of functions or multiple things. And function
Okay.
is specific to the one specific activity or execution. So that is an independent actually. So that can be
Okay.
called in the objects or in other places.
Okay, perfect. I mean, yeah, the answer is correct. But if I have to put it in a very, very simple and understandable manner for non-programming background people also, then I would say object is nothing but your data, which represents the real world entity. Real world entity basically means if you're talking about, let's say, students' data. Okay, if you're talking about students' data, that means you'll have a data set which includes each and every student and their respective details, right, in a table representation. Okay, this is my students' data, assume. Then here, each student that we are talking about would become an object, real world representation, right? So this data is nothing but your object. Okay. Now, when you're writing your programs, okay, I'll take again Java as an example, the classical example. If you're using Java, whatever program that you are developing, right, that development will be focused, completely focused on the data that is available at hand. So that means we need to have data upfront, okay? So if I know what is the data that I'm basically trying to utilize, then my program is focused based on the data. All the logic that we built would be completely based on the data itself. If data changes, that logic, that code will not work. Okay, so focused completely on the data. The program will be developed on that. Now, when we talk about function, like you mentioned, is nothing but a task that you want to achieve, or you can say a specific result that you want to achieve, or you can say logic that you want to implement. All right. So if you want to achieve a specific task, then you need to focus on task, right? You should not focus on data. This is important for us. Okay. So your development will be focused on the task, not on the data. So if you are going to give, let's say, data 1 or data 2, or it could be different type of data, right? Different data. Irrespective of this data, the task should be able to execute on that. So our focus is on the logic part in functional oriented, and Python has both the capacities. Python gives the developers the flexibility in both the cases. And from the AI perspective, we will be using functional oriented style only. Our logic is more important, not data. Okay, that gives you a flexibility, and the most important thing is it allows the reusability. It brings in this component into picture. Remember, I gave you an example. for open source case, where I developed programs in, let's say, first quarter of 2024. Using my team, I was solving 4 different use cases from 4 different domains. Right? Now, today, if you want to use the same programs, you would be able to very easily use that programs because they are not data specific. All right. So I would probably, I was using the examples of HR domain, manufacturing domain, sports domain, etc. You probably are working in agriculture domain or life sciences healthcare domain, right? Or supply chain domain. It could be any other domain. Irrespective of the data, if the logic is similar, that the business logic that we are trying to solve is similar, then you will be able to reuse, right? Thanks to this functional oriented programming language style. But remember, object oriented basically gives you the advantage to ensure the execution becomes much more right efficient, because you are writing the program in system understanding level. Okay, object, you're taking the data and you're saying that on this data I will run only this. So irrespective of the system that you're actually working on, if you compare functional oriented and object oriented programs tend to be faster when the execution happens, but at the development level it is little difficult. Okay. But Python gives you both the flexibilities, and majority of the open source packages that I was talking about, right, open source program where some of the programs are uploaded in this particular location. So a lot of these readily available programs, right, are developed in object oriented style as well. Okay, so this is the feature that we need to look at. A functional oriented is more important for us. And another very important is Python programming language is modular programming. It gives you the modularization concept as well. Now, what does this modularization basically means? Let's say if you are trying to develop an application. Okay, in this application, let's assume there are 10 features that we need to develop. There are 10 different kind of features. Okay? Some application, random application I'm talking about, and there are 10 different features. Some software. So when you are basically trying to develop this, right, as a standalone application, then what happens is these 10 features needs to be developed like this. Okay, single script, all the 10 features. So your program also becomes very big. And you need to develop it in sequential order. That means one feature at a time, one after the other. All right. So the problem here is time required for development will increase, because you have to develop first feature and then only move to second feature and then only move to the third feature, right? So that way you'll have to develop one feature at a time. So it will take longer time. And because the script becomes very large, maintaining that script also becomes very difficult. And another disadvantage is maybe some logic I have written here, I have to rewrite the entire code in this feature also. I have to bring the same code, copy paste here. So the length of the code becomes very large, right? Size becomes very large. Now this modular programming, what happens is, rather than writing a very single program like this, what I'll do, I will write one feature at a time, but I would get different people to write my program parallelly. So here we will be able to achieve parallelism. The program will be developed parallelly. So the time that is required to develop the entire code becomes very small. And Maintaining this program also becomes very easy. All right. Because this person knows what is this code, right? We have isolated it. So some error comes in, we know where to adjust it. But here, you have to look into the entire code, isn't it? So maintaining becomes very easy here. All right. And reusability as well. Because the code that I've written here, the features that are basically here, majority of these features can be utilized in this part, in some other feature. So what I can do is I can take the parts of that code, right? And I can bring that here. But when I'm doing it, I would give a name. Okay, that code logic, I would give a name. This becomes a function. Okay, so the code that I develop will be called with a name. Say, for example, I'll say function1. Now, what I do is I write this function1 separately. Rather than typing the code twice here, I would say function1. So this code also becomes an isolated component. Everything is modularized, broken down into pieces. Right? So that is modularizing. So reusability, parallelism, ease of maintenance. All right. So these are the benefits of making the programming language as modular. Okay. So yeah, these are some of the important features that we will have to remember. There are many other features like multi-threading concept is there. A lot of APIs and programs are readily available. Right? And asynchronized programming languages there. So a lot of advanced concepts are also there, but these are very, very important for us to understand to start with, right? Understanding Python programming language. All right. So this is about the features. I'll stop here. We'll stop here. Then we will talk about in the right continuation. We will talk about the fundamental concepts of any programming language. For example, in English, the fundamentals would be alphabets to start with, right? What is letters? Then phonic sounds would come. Then trying to add two letters, create a two-letter word, three-letter words, four-letter words. We try to pronounce those words, try to understand the meaning of the words. Then grammar comes in, right? Then sentences are created. From the sentences, we try to make sense of that sentence, right? Try to understand the meaning of that sentence. We call it as context. Then combine multiple sentences, we try to write a story. Right? So that is how we learn programming language, starting with letters, alphabets. So like that, for Python programming also, there are any programming language for that matter, there are certain fundamental concepts that we need to understand. Right? So we will start with those fundamentals in our next sessions. Now, once you are understanding this flow, right, you will be able to understand any kind of program. I mean, when I say any kind of Python program, basically, if I give you some program, you'll be able to understand because it's English-like language, right? And you'll understand the fundamentals, the syntaxes and all that. So you'll be able to make sense of what is the right program is actually doing. Okay. And see, we will not write programs. We will not write programs from scratch. 85 or more, I don't remember the exact stats, but it is beyond 80%. 80% or more of the current working force, right, workforce in different companies are relying on LLMs like Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT, Perplexity, Gemini. So all these are the large language models which are specifically designed to help in coding as well. Okay, so we don't write from scratch. We give instruction, we prompt, and the large language model that is trained to do the program will write the program for you and give. All right. But yeah, whatever that program that we are getting from the model, you need to understand it. from that perspective, we are focusing on Python programming language. All right. So yeah, this is about the Python programming language features and of course history. Then we will talk about fundamentals next. Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, Sharath, I have one doubt. For this, for generative AI or agentic AI, whatever it is, for internally for programming, we'll use Python language
Yes.
or okay.
Yes. Everything is on top of Python only.
Oh,
99% of the industry
hmm.
relies on Python programming for AI development.
Okay, good.
Any other question, guys?
No questions. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Anand.
Can I leave now? So means I have to join early today in office.
Yeah. That's the reason why I stopped. So we can wind up, but ensure you cast your vote on the WhatsApp group.
A time slot.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
We'll plan accordingly. Today only we'll finalize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure.
Sure.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
All right, guys.